not me being like, I'm so good being single and alone, and I'm just up here talking to who, I don't even know who I'm talking to. I do have something to say though, that I thought some people would laugh at. So I'm at this restaurant tonight. It's a house. It's so cute, by the way. It's an Italian, I think it's Italian or Portuguese. Either way, it's a house, and they have delicious food. Okay, but it's a restaurant. So I'm sitting there. Well, let me actually start back from the beginning. I walk in. I see all these cars out there. I'm like, great, I'm screwed. Like, these husbands or boyfriends or fiancés already got their reservations. They're not going to have anything for me. Which, to not my surprise, I walk in and that's the case. Everybody's like, oh, we're at capacity. Also, imagine like the world's smallest house. So when I walk in, everyone looks, right? And then she goes, we're at capacity. I'm so sorry. And then another girl says, how many? So the other girl's like, how many? And I'm like, one. Okay, I didn't feel weird going into this house restaurant until she asked how many. And I was like, oh, one. And that was when the girl was like, oh, yeah, we're at capacity. Well, then this sweet angel, and her name is Sydney, and I appreciate her. She comes walking by and she goes, it's just her, right? And she's like looking at her friend. And I'm like, she gets it. Like, she knows I'm single. I knew it. I knew that she felt for me. Because some people in this world have compassion. And the girl looks at the other girl. She goes, guys, like, I can take her. Like, it's not an issue. It's one person. And she goes, unless, like, I'll take you as long as you're okay with sitting in this table. The table that she referred to is a table they never see anyone at because it's at the door. Not sitting in the table, sitting at the table. Okay, anyways. So it's at the door though. Anyone who walks in, they're like right on top of you. So they walk in to go to this restaurant and here you are sitting at the table and they're like right in front of you. So everyone that walked in, I'm hearing their conversation. They're like, wonder where the host is. Like, where can we sit? And I'm just awkwardly like just trying to eat my food because I never felt weird until people walked in because they're right there. But it's like we were together. And all of them though would walk in and be like, where's the host? Like, I wonder who seats us. And I would be like, they'll come to you. All I had to do was slightly speak under my breath and they heard me. That's how close we were. But I was like, they'll come to you. And then they would get seated. Okay, this is where I chuckled at my own self, was when I picked up this book. So I'm jetting out of the house earlier. I have to drop the girls off on time. And I'm looking through the books on my nightstand. And as I'm looking through the books on my nightstand, I'm like, gosh, I've read that one. And I pick up one, didn't read the title. I just pick up one that I knew I hadn't read. So that's the book you saw in my previous stories, where it's a book about marriage. Had no idea that's the book I chose to pick up on Valentine's Day as a single woman. In a restaurant alone where everyone's got their significant other. And so it wasn't until I sit down to eat or I sit down, with my water and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I chose to get a book on marriage. How hilarious. Well, as I'm reading the book, I think one of the first chapters said marriage doesn't last forever. And the context in the chapter is more so like when we get to heaven, the confines between husband and wife, or the whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. It doesn't translate like that into heaven. And that's what the chapter's about. Whereas it was just funny because I'm so much in the middle of so many people that like people would walk by and bump my chair. I was just like smack dab in the middle of all these people. And I knew as they would walk by that they could see what the chapter said. And they were probably thinking, this girl is so depressed on Valentine's Day that she's reading a book that literally says marriage doesn't last forever just to make herself feel better. And so I was like low-key laughing at what they were probably all thinking because I didn't care. You know what I'm saying? But on the flip side of that, to go into a more serious note, like I am going to be really real for a second. My daughter's saying they didn't want to basically be with me on Valentine's Day. They wanted to go to their school, which I'm thankful. Like, I'm thankful they love their school, because we've experienced so many years where they didn't love their school. So this is a blessing. I just really, I was like, wow, like this is going to probably be hard for me, hard because in the past few years, I've always been alone for Valentine's, but I had at least my daughters. And to be totally transparent, earlier today when I would see husbands, we literally walked into a grocery store or somewhere, I forget where I was, and yeah, a grocery store, and I saw 4 men buying flowers for their people, and I was like, dang. Oh, we walked in, I had to get prescriptions because my mouth is on fire. I'm getting a root canal. Anyways, and so I had to walk in there, and I see 4 men getting flowers for their significant other, and I got choked up. I did. I was like, gosh, like this sucks, and I was really worried about how I'd feel tonight. And all day I was just kind of praying, like, God, please help it not to sting so much. Because at the end of the day, I heard a girl say on a post recently, it's not like I have to be single, but it's that I'm choosing to be single. And that's not like a cocky perspective. It's more so like any of us could find someone, but is that person good for us? Like, is that individual good for you? Is that individual what you're actually waiting for, what you're seeking the Lord for? And so yeah, like, I don't know. I think Valentine's Day, it's hard for any single person. Like, I'm not going to front out here and act like I'm loving today. At the same time, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this with as much transparency as I can. While earlier today was so difficult for me, when I actually dropped the girls off and I went and sat at that restaurant, I felt the presence of the Lord so much with me. Like, that God was with me, and that was enough. Meanwhile, I'm reading a book that was literally talking about how marriage isn't forever. God is, though. Like, your relationship with Jesus is forever. And I'm sitting there thinking, here I am accidentally reading this book in a place that I feel alone in. I just felt completely comforted. That's the only word I can think of. I felt his peace and I felt his comfort. Because what I realized was, while I may not have that earthly companion, he was with me in a dinner that anyone in that restaurant could have looked at and felt bad for. Like, dang, like that girl's alone on Valentine's Day. And I didn't feel bad for myself. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel like, all these people I didn't feel jealous or envious. I felt really content. I didn't feel happy. I felt content, and I felt like this inner joy that, God is with me, and he's got a plan. And I don't know, I want the other single girls up here, especially like the single moms that are just feeling down today, just to remember, single dads too, I know some of you follow me, like, just to be encouraged that what you have with God, what you have with Jesus is so significant, it's so special, it's so unique, but it's also so divine. That, like, whatever place you're in, even if you're worried about how you're going to feel, that you have the ability to say, God, just protect my emotions in this phase, like in this day, in this moment, in these hours. Just protect my emotions. Help me to not feel so alone. Help me to not feel so overlooked or so hidden or so just like forgotten. Help me to remember that, like, you're legit with me. I know you are, but please remind me in some form. And I think by the accidental pickup of that book, as well as his peace that I felt, and then that sweet girl who was so willing to just take me, because that was the only restaurant I wanted to go to, because it was a quaint restaurant and it felt like a home and it didn't feel invasive. God delights in the details of